My name is Vera Halston, and I'm 25 years old. I didn't want to write this because saying it out loud makes it real in a way I'm not sure I can handle. But I've been walking around with this tight, vibrating feeling in my chest for weeks, like a trapped scream, and if I don't let it out somewhere, I'm going to implode. My mom died of cancer a few years ago. People say that sentence like it's a headline, sad but simple. Like grief is a straight line you can finish. But losing her wasn't just loss. It was like someone reached into my life and quietly removed the safest part of it. My mom wasn't just my mother. She was my home. She was the person who knew how I took my tea, the songs I played when I couldn't sleep, the look on my face when I was pretending I was fine. When she was gone, everything in the house sounded different. Even the silence sounded different. And the only thing that brought me even a sliver of comfort was what she left behind. Not money, not property, her jewelry. My mom loved jewelry the way some people love books. Each piece meant something. She wasn't rich, not even close, but she collected a small, beautiful set of pieces over the years. Some were gifts, some she saved for. A couple were passed down from her side of the family. She used to sit on the edge of my bed, open the little boxes one by one, and tell me the story behind every item like she was letting me borrow her memories. There were 6 pieces in total, and I can still list them like a prayer. A delicate gold bracelet my grandmother gave her when she turned 18. A locket with a tiny picture of me as a baby. My cheeks round, her smile behind me like sunshine. A sapphire ring my dad gave her for an anniversary back when they still looked at each other like they were lucky. A pair of diamond earrings, small but bright. A pearl necklace she wore on special occasions. And a little brooch that wasn't valuable, but she loved it because it reminded her of her mother. Even when she was sick, she wore them. Some days, chemo made her too weak to get out of bed, but she'd still slide on her favorite ring or put in the earrings like she was trying to trick her body into remembering who she was. She'd look in the mirror and smile, soft, tired, and for a second, she looked alive again. After she passed, those pieces became my most prized possession, not because of what they were worth, because they were her. Every piece carried a moment in time where she was still here, still laughing, still telling me I was going to be okay. Then my dad remarried. Fast. Not years later. Not after the grief had settled into something bearable. Barely a year after my mom passed, my dad married Martha, 57F. Even typing her name makes my jaw clench. Martha came with her daughter, Robin, 24F, who was basically my age and somehow managed to act like she was both my competitor and my judge. Martha had that glossy, performative kindness, sweet voice, polite smile, eyes that never actually warmed. The kind of woman who says, "Sweetheart," the way other people say, "Move." I tried. I really did. I told myself I was an adult, that my father deserved happiness, that I couldn't be the bitter daughter clinging to the past. But every time Martha looked at me, I felt like she saw me as an obstacle, not a person, not family, just something standing between her and the life she wanted. And Robin? Robin was entitled in a way that didn't even bother hiding. She spoke to me, like I was lucky to be included in her orbit. She'd make little comments about my mood, about my attachment issues, about how I should move forward. Like my mother was a phase I needed to grow out of. Around that time, I was dating my boyfriend, Ethan. He's the kind of man who doesn't waste words, but somehow always says the right ones. When I'd come home from my dad's house with my hands shaking, Ethan would just pull me against his chest and let me breathe until the rage drained out. He didn't love conflict, but he loved me enough to stand in front of it with me. And that mattered, because what happened next felt like someone trying to erase my mother right in front of me. Fast forward to last year. Robin was getting married. Big fancy wedding. Huge guest list. The kind of event that's less about love and more about proving you can afford love. Martha was in full performance mode. Bridal showers, dress appointments, phone calls that lasted forever. And then one night, I overheard something that made my blood turn to ice. Martha was in the kitchen on the phone, laughing. This high, excited laugh, like she'd won something. I was walking down the hall and heard her say, "Oh, she's going to look absolutely stunning in the sapphire ring. I'm going to give it to her during the bridal shower." I froze. My heart didn't just drop, it stopped. The sapphire ring, my mother's ring, the one my dad gave her, the one she wore even when her hands got thin and frail from treatments, the ring she twisted nervously when she was scared, The ring she kissed once, joking, when my dad finally came home after a long work trip. My ring. I walked into the kitchen like I was on autopilot. What did you just say? Martha turned, all calm, like she hadn't just set fire to my insides. Oh, Vera, sweetheart, nothing you need to worry about. I heard you. My voice was shaking. You said you're giving Robin my mom's sapphire ring. Her smile didn't falter. That was the first thing that terrified me. It's a family heirloom, she said, like she'd rehearsed it. It should stay in the family. I stared at her. That jewelry is not yours. It was my mother's. She left it to me. Martha sighed like I was being unreasonable. Robin is your sister now. It's her wedding day. Don't you want her to have something special? My hands were trembling. Robin is not my sister. That's when my dad walked in. And for one stupid, hopeful second, I thought he would fix it. I thought he'd remember the way my mom cherished those pieces. I thought he'd see my face and realize how deep this cut was. But he didn't. He looked at me like I was causing a scene. Vera, he said, tired. Relax. It's just jewelry. Just jewelry. Martha's eyes flicked toward me, and I saw it, the satisfaction, hidden behind her concern. Dad kept going. Robin is getting married first. It makes sense. It should go to her. I couldn't breathe. Do you actually think Mom would have wanted that? He frowned, annoyed, like I was dragging up something inconvenient. You're being selfish. Robin's starting a new chapter. You should be happy for her instead of holding on to the past. Holding on to the past. He said that about my dead mother. Something in me cracked so sharply it felt like bone. If you let Martha or Robin take even one piece, I said, my voice low and shaking, I will never forgive you, and I will never speak to you again. Dad exhaled like I was a child threatening to run away. Think about it, he said. That night, I went home to Ethan and cried so hard I couldn't speak. He held me, his jaw tight, and said one sentence that changed everything. They're not asking, Vera, they're taking. And he was right. If I kept fighting them head on, I would lose. My dad wouldn't back me up. Martha had already decided. And Robin would wear my mother like an accessory and never feel a single ounce of shame. So the next day, I did something I never thought I'd do. I played along. I went back to my dad's house and told them I'd thought about it. I told them they were right. I told them I'd been too emotional, too attached, too stuck in grief. Martha's face lit up with smug relief. Oh, sweetheart, she said, reaching for my hand like we were close. I knew you'd come around. It's what your mother would have wanted. I smiled so hard my cheeks hurt. And inside, I was already planning my next move. Because if they wanted to treat my mother's memory like something they could pass around, then I was going to make sure what they took from me wasn't real. I didn't sleep the night after I came around. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while Ethan breathed beside me, steady and warm, like my body could borrow calm from his lungs. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Martha's satisfied smile. I heard my father's voice. It's just jewelry. And then, worse than that, I saw Robin wearing my mother's sapphire ring, laughing for photos, like she'd won something that was never hers to win. By 3 a.m., I wasn't crying anymore. I was calculating. Ethan rolled over, squinting at the glow of my phone. Vera, he murmured, voice heavy with sleep. You okay? No, I whispered, but I'm going to be. He propped himself up on an elbow, fully awake now. Talk to me. I told him everything I'd been thinking. That if I fought them openly, they would label me hysterical and selfish. That my dad had already chosen the easiest path, appeasing his new wife. That Martha had the house, the access, and the confidence of a woman who believed she'd already won. Ethan didn't interrupt. He just listened, jaw tightening more and more. Like every word was another weight added to his restraint. When I finished, he exhaled slowly. So what are you going to do? I stared at the wall. I'm going to make sure the only thing they can take is a lie. That was the moment the plan became real. The next morning, I called an old friend from college, Lauren, 25F. We hadn't been close, not the kind of friends who text every day, but she was always kind in a way that felt honest. We'd studied together, had a few late-night talks, and I remembered one important detail. Her brother was a jeweler. When she picked up, her voice was bright. Vera, oh my God, hi, it's been forever. We did the small talk dance first, jobs, rent, life. I kept my tone light, like I wasn't about to commit emotional warfare. Then I said, as casually as I could, Hey, do you think your brother still does custom work? Lauren perked up immediately. James? Yeah, he does. What do you need? I paused. I didn't want to tell her the whole truth, not because I didn't trust her, because I didn't trust the universe. Secrets have a way of slipping out when you don't hold them tight. I need duplicates made, I said, very realistic ones. There was a beat of silence. Duplicates of what? She asked carefully. Jewelry, I replied. 6 pieces. 6? Her voice rose. Okay, that's not normal. I swallowed. I know. I can pay. I just need it done quietly. Lauren's tone softened. Are you safe? Like, is this a weird situation? I didn't want to dump my whole life into her lap, but I also didn't want her to think I was doing something illegal for fun. So I gave her the version that was true enough to matter. It's family, I said, and I need to protect something sentimental. Lauren exhaled like she'd decided something. Okay, she said. I'll ask him. If he agrees, I'll set it up. When I hung up, my hands were shaking, not from fear of getting caught, but from the intensity of what I was about to do. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't petty revenge. This was me building a safe around my mother's memory because no one else would. 2 days later, I met James at his workshop. It smelled like metal and polish, and something faintly electric, like the air itself had been sharpened. The place was small but clean. Glass cases, tools lined up like surgical instruments, a workbench lit by a bright lamp. James was in his early 30s, calm eyes, hands that moved with practiced precision. He looked at me like he'd seen every kind of desperation walk through his door and had learned not to judge it. Lauren had warned him, I could tell. He didn't ask why, not at first. He just asked, "Do you have the pieces?" I nodded and pulled out the small velvet pouch from my bag. The moment I loosened the drawstring, my stomach clenched. Even holding them outside of their boxes felt wrong, like I was exposing something sacred to fluorescent light. But I reminded myself I wasn't giving them away. I was saving them. I laid them out on the felt mat James placed on the counter, one by one. The sapphire ring, the gold bracelet, the locket, the diamond earrings, the pearl necklace, the brooch. James leaned in, eyes narrowing slightly, not in suspicion, but in focus. He picked up the sapphire ring first, turning it under the lamp. Light moved through the stone like deep water. "You want replicas," he said, voice even. "Same look, same setting, same wear?" "Yes," I whispered, as close as possible. James studied me for a moment. "I'm going to ask one question," he said, "and you can answer it or not. But I need to know I'm not helping someone hurt someone else." I swallowed hard. "I'm not trying to scam anyone," I said. "I'm trying to keep someone from stealing what doesn't belong to them." James's gaze held mine, then he nodded once. "Okay." I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath until it came out as a shaky exhale. He started explaining what would be hard. The weight, the feel, the way real gold sits differently than plated metal, the minute flaws that make old jewelry look old. But he wasn't saying it like an excuse. He was saying it like a craftsman mapping out a mission. "It'll cost," he warned. "I'll pay," I said instantly. He gave me a look that said he'd heard that before. "Half now," he said. "Half when you pick them up." I didn't hesitate. I handed over my card like it was a weapon I'd been waiting to use. And then, the hardest part, I left the jewelry with him. Walking out of that shop without them felt like walking out without my mother's hand in mine. My chest ached the entire drive home. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my fingers hurt. Ethan met me at the door when I got home, concern written all over his face. "How did it go?" he asked. I dropped my keys into the bowl like my hands were numb. "He's doing it." Ethan stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Are you sure this is what you want?" I looked up at him. "No," I said honestly, "but I'm sure it's what I need." Because this wasn't about being clever. It was about being cornered. Over the next week, I acted like everything was fine. I answered Martha's polite questions with polite answers. I smiled at my dad like my heart wasn't bruised. I even let Robin talk at me about napkins and seating charts like she wasn't preparing to walk down the aisle wearing pieces of my mother. Every time she mentioned the jewelry, something inside me went cold. One afternoon, I was upstairs in my childhood bedroom, my old room, the one Martha now treated like a guest room she tolerated, when I caught the sound of drawers opening. I froze. The door wasn't fully closed. Through the crack, I saw Martha's silhouette moving with casual confidence. She was in my room, in my space. Her hands were going through my things like she had the right. My pulse slammed in my ears. I stepped into the doorway and said very evenly, "Can I help you?" Martha turned, not startled at all. That's the kind of person she was. Nothing surprised her because she believed she was entitled to everything. "Oh," she said, fake bright. "I was just checking, making sure everything's safe. With the wedding coming up, you know." Her eyes flicked toward the dresser, toward the small jewelry boxes. My throat tightened. She wasn't checking. She was counting down. That night, Ethan sat with me at the kitchen table in my apartment, both of us surrounded by silence and half-drunk mugs of tea. She went into my room, I said quietly. Ethan's face darkened. She's going to take it whether you agree or not. I know, I whispered. That's when the urgency sharpened. James texted Lauren a few days later, and Lauren texted me. They're ready. I picked them up the next morning. James placed the replicas in front of me like he was presenting something both impressive and dangerous. They looked perfect. The bracelet had the same gentle curve. The locket opened the same way. The sapphire ring caught light like a promise. I picked up the ring, heart pounding, and turned it in my fingers. If I didn't know, I wouldn't know. That's insane, I whispered. James's mouth twitched in a faint, humorless smile. Look closer. I did. If I held it under the lamp at just the right angle, I could see the smallest difference. A tiny imperfection. A weight that was slightly wrong. But Martha wasn't a jeweler. Robin wasn't either. And my dad couldn't even remember my mom's favorite song. This will work, James said, firm. I nodded, my stomach twisting. Thank you. He leaned forward slightly. Once you do this, he said quietly, you need to commit. No hesitation. People get caught when guilt makes them sloppy. I swallowed. I can commit. On the drive back, the replicas sat in the passenger seat like a secret that had teeth. The real jewelry, my mother's jewelry, was going to disappear from that house before Martha could touch it. But I needed the perfect timing. And Martha was hovering now, like she could smell opportunity. So I chose the last day I could, the day before the wedding. Martha and my dad left early to run errands. Last-minute chaos. Robin was busy with bridal prep, hair, nails, whatever brides do when they're about to become the center of a room. The house was quiet. Too quiet. My hands trembled as I went to the dresser where the jewelry boxes were kept. The boxes looked innocent, like they were just containers. But they were actually a doorway to every memory I didn't want stolen. I opened the first box and saw the sapphire ring. For a second, I hesitated. Not because I doubted my plan, because touching it felt like touching a wound. I whispered, I'm sorry, Mom. Then I moved. Fast. I took out each real piece and replaced it with its twin. Same boxes, same arrangement, same order. I even placed the necklace exactly the way it had been lying, with the clasp tucked under like it always was. When I finished, the real jewelry sat in the velvet pouch in my hand like a heartbeat. I didn't breathe until the boxes were closed and slid back into place like nothing had happened. Then I left the room and forced my body to move normally. Walk, don't run. Breathe, don't shake. Because the swap wasn't the scary part. The scary part was what came next. Martha came home that evening glowing with self-satisfaction. She called me downstairs like she was summoning an employee she liked. She poured wine into 2 glasses and handed one to me. I just wanted to thank you again, she said warmly, for being so mature about this, Vera. The wine glass felt heavy in my hand. Mature, as if I'd grown up into obedience. Martha leaned in slightly, voice soft, like she was offering comfort. I know this was hard, she said, but you're doing the right thing. I looked at her, and I saw it, clear as glass. She believed she'd won. She believed my grief was something she'd trained out of me, like a bad habit. So I smiled. I lifted the glass. And I lied. I'm doing the right thing, I repeated, tasting the words like poison. Martha's smile widened. Inside me, something went still, because the trap was already set, and now all I had to do was wait for them to step into it. For almost a year, nothing happened. That was the most unsettling part. Life went on like I hadn't detonated a quiet bomb inside my family. Robin got married. Martha paraded her around like a trophy wife in training. The jewelry, the fake jewelry, made appearances at brunches and holidays, always accompanied by Martha's smug little comments. Doesn't it look gorgeous on her? Such meaningful pieces deserve to be worn. Your mother would have been so proud. Every time she said my mom's name, my stomach twisted. I smiled anyway. I nodded. I played the part of the healed daughter who'd matured. Behind the scenes, I locked the real jewelry in a safe deposit box at my bank. I only kept the locket and the brooch with me, pieces that felt too intimate to hide away. The rest stayed sealed, protected by metal and numbers only I knew. Ethan was the only one who saw the cost. Some nights I'd wake up with my heart racing, convinced I'd hear my phone ringing. Other nights I'd sit in the shower too long, letting the water burn because it drowned out the thoughts. What if they find out? What if Dad finally asks the right question? What if Martha is smarter than I think? Ethan would sit on the bathroom floor, back against the tub, and say, "They took the risk, not you." I tried to believe him. And then, 2 weeks ago, my phone rang. Dad. I stared at his name on the screen until the ringing stopped, then started again. I answered on the second ring, forcing my voice into something neutral. "Hey." He didn't waste time. "Your stepmother and Robin had the jewelry appraised." My heart slammed so hard I thought it might give me away through the phone. "Okay," I said carefully. "They said it's fake," he snapped. "All of it." I nearly dropped the phone. A full year, and they finally did the one thing I never expected them to do. Appraise it. My mind raced, but something else cut through the panic. Rage. Because appraisal meant one thing. They weren't preserving it. They weren't treasuring it. They were checking its resale value. I forced a small, confused laugh. "Fake? What do you mean fake?" "The appraiser said it looks convincing, but it's not real," Dad said. "Martha and Robin are freaking out. They think you did something." There it was. The accusation without proof. I steadied my breathing. "That's weird," I said. "But why were they getting it appraised?" Silence. I could practically hear him scrambling for an answer. "Well, they just wanted to know," he muttered. "You know, for insurance." Insurance. I almost laughed. "I thought it was a family heirloom," I said gently. "Why would they need to know the resale value?" Another pause, longer this time. Dad finally said, "I'll call you back," and hung up. That was when the fear really hit. For the next few days, I jumped at every notification. I checked my door twice before bed. Every unknown number felt like a confrontation waiting to happen. And then one afternoon, it did. I opened my apartment door to find my father standing there, face tight with anger. He didn't ask to come in. He just walked past me like I was still a teenager living under his roof. "Martha wants to take legal action," he said. "For what?" I asked calmly, closing the door. "For stolen jewelry." I crossed my arms. "You can't steal something that already belongs to you. Mom left that jewelry to me. It's in her will." "That doesn't matter," he snapped. "Robin is family." "No," I said quietly. "She's not." He went off then, about selfishness, about unity, about how my mother would have wanted me to share. The words blurred together until I cut in. "Then answer me this," I said. "Why were they trying to sell it?" That stopped him cold. He stared at me, jaw working, anger draining into something more uncomfortable. I didn't say they were selling it. "You didn't have to," I replied. He left without another word. 2 days later, my phone rang again. This time from my Aunt Sydney, 53F, my mom's sister. She sounded furious. "Martha is telling everyone you stole Robin's wedding jewelry," she said. "But don't worry, no one on our side believes her." I sat down hard on the couch. Sydney kept going. "Your mom told me years ago she was worried about this exact thing. She said if anything happened to her, the jewelry was yours, no matter who your father married." I cried after that call. Not because I was scared anymore, because I felt vindicated. Then came the text. Robin sent me a message so long I had to scroll. She called me bitter, accused me of ruining her wedding memories, claimed I lied about the jewelry being fake. And then she wrote the sentence that ended everything. "I don't care if you switch them. I just want the real ones back." I stared at the screen, heart pounding. She knew, or thought she did. I replied with one line, "Robin, I have no idea what you're talking about. The jewelry you were given is the jewelry you received." She lost it. Threats, accusations, promises of consequences. The next day, Dad called again, exhausted this time. "Martha talked to a lawyer," he said. "She wants to press charges." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "For what?" I asked. "Possession of my own inheritance?" The lawyer told her she had no case. And in her fury, Martha finally confessed to Dad. She admitted she planned to give Robin my mother's jewelry no matter what, that she never intended to ask me, that she thought I was selfish and needed to get over it. Something finally snapped in my father. That night he called me again. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I should have protected you and your mother." It didn't erase what happened, but it changed what came next. Because Martha hadn't just lost the jewelry, she'd lost control. And she wasn't done destroying everything on her way down. After my dad apologized, the house went quiet in a way that felt unnatural, like the silence after a glass shatters, when you know there's still cleanup coming. Martha didn't come home. She stayed with Robin for a few days, which everyone pretended was temporary. But I could hear it in my dad's voice when we talked on the phone, lighter, almost relieved. Like the tension that had lived in his shoulders for years had finally loosened its grip. I didn't trust it. People like Martha don't retreat quietly. They regroup. And sure enough, a week later, the implosion started. It began with whispers. Relatives I barely spoke to suddenly had opinions. Distant cousins sent awkward, just checking in messages. Someone told me Martha had been calling around, telling her version of the story, how she was emotionally abused, how my dad never treated her as an equal, how I was manipulative and cruel and had turned him against her. She painted herself as the victim so convincingly it almost impressed me. Almost. Then my dad called me one night, his voice tight with exhaustion. "You're not going to believe what I found," he said. That's when everything shifted from messy to nuclear. After Martha left, my dad finally did what he should have done years ago. He looked at their finances. Really looked. Not the surface-level checks he used to do, trusting her explanations, trusting that love meant loyalty. It didn't take long. Thousands of dollars had been quietly siphoned from their joint account over the years. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. Money rerouted into miscellaneous expenses that conveniently traced back to Robin's wedding, Robin's rent, Robin's lifestyle. Some of it didn't trace back to anything at all. When my dad confronted Martha, she didn't even deny it. She shrugged, my dad told me, disbelief thick in his voice. She said she deserved it after everything she put up with. Everything she put up with. A man who paid the bills, a house she lived in rent-free, a daughter supported without question, and she still felt entitled to more. The next morning, my dad met with a lawyer. By the end of the week, he was filing for divorce. That was when Martha truly lost control. She showed up at the house while my dad was out, pounding on the door, screaming about betrayal and abandonment. I wasn't there, but my dad's security camera recorded everything, her voice cracking between rage and fake tears, threatening to ruin him in court. She left before the police were called, but she wasn't finished. When the divorce proceedings began, Martha tried one last power play. She demanded spousal support, claiming she'd sacrificed everything to be with my dad. It backfired spectacularly. The financial records told a story she couldn't outrun. The court denied her request, and now she's facing potential legal action to repay the money she took. She didn't just lose support. She lost credibility. Robin didn't handle it well. She called my dad crying, demanding he fix things. She said if he really loved Martha, he wouldn't let me come between them. My dad's response was calm, final. "This has nothing to do with Vera," he said. "It has everything to do with your mother lying and stealing." Robin tried a different tactic. She threatened to cut him off forever. He said, "Okay." She didn't expect that. A month passed. Then Robin called again, voice trembling, tone completely different. Rent was due, money was tight, she needed help. My dad listened quietly. Then he said, "Robin, I hope you figure it out, but I'm not your ATM." And he hung up. When he told me that, I didn't feel triumph. I felt peace, because this was never about revenge. It was about boundaries, about protecting what mattered when no one else would. My mom's jewelry is still safe, locked away, untouched, waiting. And my father, flawed, late, but finally awake, is learning something he should have learned years ago. Love doesn't mean surrender. And family doesn't mean access.